Hello, hello everyone, and welcome. So in this tutorial, we're gonna look at something a bit more sophisticated. We're gonna think about animation, and we're gonna be talking about what we call inverse kinematic. There's forward kinematic and there's inverse kinematic. Now, to put it very simply, we're all familiar with inverse kinematic because that's the way the human brain operates. We are interested, for example, with my hand, I'm interested in picking an object, so this object, for example, and the way my brain operates, I'm not going to move my arm, my forearm, and then my elbow again, and then my wrist, and then my finger to hold. No, I move my fingers towards this, and all the rest of the arm kind of follow. What in reality happens is that our brain does automatically inverse kinematic. We look at what we want to achieve, and then our brain unconsciously controls all the part of your limb or arm or forearm so that you achieve what you want. So you have to think about what we've done so far with the robot arm as forward kinematic. We learned that we can have parent and child, and that when we move the parent, the child move around. So we have the fingers are the children of the wrist is of the forearm of the elbow of the arm, and the arm of the upper arm, and the upper arm of the shoulder. I'm confusing my shoulders and my elbows. And so when we move, we rotate the shoulder, all the arm rotates. When we rotate the elbow, all the forearms and the wrist rotate. When you rotate the rim, the fingers move, and so on and so forth. But what you want to think about is the other way around. I want to move my finger to a certain point, for example, reaching this, and I'm only concerned about how this finger reaches this point, and the rest just has to follow. So we'll do this by looking at a specific file and work from that. So we're going to open the file inverse kinematic, which is also a file that is provided. So if we open, we go to our folder, which is in the documents. Maybe I should have to open it the other way around. Here we are, and we're looking for the leg ICAM, so in leg inverse kinematic. So again, we make sure that it's scaled to millimeter, and we do, so we need to control Shift Z to zoom, and this is what we get. This doesn't look right. So why is it not right? Oops, I need to see why the file is not right. So I will pause and see what's wrong. Just a second. Right. So I found out what the problem was, is you have to keep the unit from the file because the way the file is set up, and we don't want to restart anything. So when you open the file, we go to the folder which contains the files, and in our case it's here, and it's this one, and it's leg underscore IK. And when you open, make sure you choose the file units. So we can restore the viewpoints, and here we have our 3 viewpoints. And what we can do is a very simple thing. We can look at the objects here on the side, the list of objects here, and we select. So we can maximize the window, because we're not going to, so we can do it by clicking, or we can do it by typing Alt W. That's the same. And then what we do, we select the IK chain 01 object, and here is the object in the object list. If you don't have that, you can click on the H and you IH, which is to have the object list, and you can select here. So we can do that and say OK, and then we see some string appearing, and when you move the move tool, and you can move that, and this is what happens. So we can do with just moving things around, and that's what happens. So what you can do next is we go to the hierarchy panel. So we were in the create panel, then you have the modify panel, and now we go to the hierarchy panel, and we have something slightly different. And we're gonna look at the IK point, and you can see what we can do now. So we can move this, we can move that, and that's basically what you want to do. Next, we can look at the pivot issue, which is here, and then we can start to do things. So, what is a pivot? You have to think about the pivot as being essentially a point of rotation, like a joint, like a hinge, and it's basically where things happen. It's the center of rotation of where things. So we can adjust this, so we can move and rotate affecting the pivot only, we can move, affect, so we can try to move and affect the pivot only. We cross here and we change that a little bit to something slightly different. So we can see how here the pivot moves around, and of course the object moves, and then we choose object, select object only. We can see how it's a different type of selection, and now we can't move things because the pivot are preventing the object from moving around. So what I'm trying to say here is you have to make sure you have the right buttons and you're doing the right operation onto your pivot and your things. Another thing they can do as well is look at the link info. So if you click here, you can see what happens here, and we can then specify which axis of something we move. So for example, rotate, we do only the y-axis, and then when I do this and I do rotation, nothing happens, nothing happens, and nothing happens. But when I, oh sorry, what am I doing here? So link info, yeah. So, sorry, I'm locking here. That's not what I want to do. I want to lock the X. So the more I want to lock the X, sorry, I was thinking I'm half asleep. So when you do a movement, you can see that now all of that move, but we can restrict that. So we can move it in the Z, Y plan, or the Z. So we can move in the Z, Y plan. And what we can do now is we can select the link and we can restrict it to moving only on the Z plan, for example. So we restrict the movement here and here, and then when you try to move, it doesn't move on the other. So we can constrain our joints, our pivot. And that's what's very important. You remember when we did the robot arm, we could rotate according to the hierarchy in the previous tutorial, but we could also move, and we could move and disassemble the robot. Now with this, we can fix that. So I'm going to do that now, and I'm going to show you how this will improve our robot design. So we stop this, we save this. So we save as, and it's example 2.23. 213, and now that it's saved, hopefully before my computer crash. Why is my computer, something's not working? So I will pause and I will come back. Sorry. Okay, it's back. So now we can reset. And we can start the follow-up exercise. So now we're going to open the locomotive wheel, and you're going to start doing the next exercise, which is in more detail. So we open, so we go to the locomotive wheel in the documents that we have. Where do I open like this? Document. And we're looking for the locomotive wheel. So the locomotive wheel, this one. And here we are, have our object. So what we need is we need to display subtree, and we have this. We can do it also from here, but we can do it like this. And so we have the arm, the pivot, and the local wheel. So we have the local wheel here, we have the pivot here, and you have the arm. You can also click here to have the local wheel, the pivot, and the arm. It's exactly the same. We can do it directly on the scene, or we can do it on the object tree, as I call it. So what you want to do is we want to do something and you want to see what happens. So if we click on rotation and we take the local wheel and we're going to rotate it around the x-axis. Sorry, we remember that we need to make sure that this is local always. So we're going to rotate it like this, and that works, but the arm is also rotating. That's not good. So we want to prevent that from happening. Okay, because that's not the way it works in a locomotive. So we do Control Z to come back to the original picture. Here we are. So now what we do so we can go up and down. Interestingly, we can go up and down the hierarchy by pressing up and down, page up and page down on the keyboard, or we can click here, it's the same story, or we can click here, it's the same story again. So we go to select object and we select the pivot object. So now we are, by going up and page down on the keyboard, which is these keys here, I don't know if you can see, yeah, these two keys, sorry, here, page up and page down. We can then do we can go up and down the hierarchy rather than clicking or anything. It's easy. These are called keyboard shortcut, and trust me, the more you learn about any software, the more you discover that they're keyboard shortcuts, and the more you want to use them because they help you go faster. So what we want to do is very simple. We have the we have selected the right pivot, which is the, as you can see, it's highlighted. Then we go here and we go to the hierarchy, and then what we do, we choose a link info, and then what you want to do is we want it to inherit X, Y, Z, inherit X and Z, but not inherit Y. So we want to remove that. And then what we do when we have that, we can select the wheel again, and we're going to try to rotate it, and you're going to see the effect of what we've done. And here's the effect. So as you can see, we have now the effect that we want, which is that the wheel rotates, but the pivot does not rotate in the y-axis. So it doesn't inherit the y-axis rotation, which means it doesn't rotate as well as the wheel. It stays horizontal. So everything else rotates, but not in the horizontal axis, which means the arm, which is this object, or this one, if I click here, will now rotate in the same way. So that's the editing that we've done, and now you're pretty much ready to do all the animation you want for your with inverse kinematic, forward kinematic. Thank you. So we save this, and that will be 4. So remember always to save your work, and one is saved, and that's it. Thank you.